Right, yeah. Right.
Sure.
Right.
It's you have to pay for it.
Right.
It'll work in it works in open office.
Okay, so please allow me to welcome you all to Georgetown this morning, and thank you for joining us. I'd like to start by thanking the university for giving us this space to have this symposium, the University of the Pacific for helping us organize the conference the next 2 days, the NEH for funding our project, the Office of Digital Humanities in particular, and the Division of Preservation and Access, and everybody else who supported us over the years, I guess. So this is the second DC. The first one was in Berlin about 2 years ago. At the time, we also had support from the German BMBF, the Ministry of Research and Education. And a lot of the people in Berlin who are still collaborating with us, Anke Lüdeling's team, a lot of people here, and many of whom are present who are collaborating on our project. And almost most of all, I guess I would like to thank the speakers who have come here from all over the world, from as far as Japan, in so Miyagawa's case, from Europe, especially from Germany, many speakers, and also from different places in the States. So thank you all so much for coming. What we have planned for us in the next 2 days is today an open symposium with talks about the state of the art and digital work on Coptic, kind of where we are hoping to see this language increasingly in the coming years, much like Latin and Greek before it in the digital tradition. So today we'll have a lot of really interesting talks. Our first session is about new digitization projects and ones that are currently expanding. We'll have a talk, the first talk by Sellew about Coptic papyri. We'll have Farag's talk about the Cameroon manuscript fragments, White Monastery. We'll have Farag speaking about the Coptic Old Testament and the Virtual Manuscript Room project. Recently started working in Göttingen. Frederick Krüger, who's presenting his talk together with Kathleen John, who can't be here, about the foreign loanword project, the Greek loanword project in Coptic, which has in some incarnation or other been running for a while. In the afternoon session, we'll have talks about using the language data in digital Coptic projects. Our own talk, Rebecca Krawick and myself will be giving a talk about Coptic SCRIPTORIUM, the work that we've been doing the last 2 years. There'll be a talk by Paul Dilley, which will be beamed to us via Google Hangouts about his work using the corpora. And there'll be Miyagawa's talk about clitics and segmentation of words in Coptic. And in the late afternoon, we'll have a session about some languages other than Coptic that face very similar challenges, primarily Syriac. So we'll have Professor Darling Young's talk about the Syriac in the Middle East. We'll have a talk by Joel Kalfas-Maki about alignment and parallel corpora, kind of multilingual resources and XML standards for that. And we're concluding with Adam McCollum's talk about his work at the Hill Museum on digitizing the manuscript of Eastern Christianity. So that's going to be very interesting. And I'm really looking forward to learning what everybody is doing, what everybody needs, what everybody feels is the next step for digital Coptic. Then tomorrow is a more hands-on kind of workshop day, and our idea was to start by showing you kind of how we actually work with these tools, tell you a little bit about our search engine called Anis that's been developed for various kinds of language corpora and has been expanding a lot in the Coptic area recently. Then some really hands-on work that will be presented by Schroeder from the University of the Pacific about how to get your data into a state where you can just publish it online. So a lot of tools that we have, automated tools for segmenting Coptic word forms into their constituents, or automatically tagging for part of speech for Coptic, and other things that we've been building in the last 2 years. And we'll follow up in the second half of the day with really kind of roundtable discussions about the standards for Coptic, best practices, things that you feel should be done differently, or kind of a lot of points that we find kind of ambiguous, or how would you analyze this, and kind of taking everybody's temperature on different kind of decisions that we've been making. And concluding with really future directions and discussing what we all do next and what people can learn from each other and contribute to each other's work. So that is more or less the plan. I'm really glad to see so many people here. I think we've come a very long way in establishing a digital Coptic community since 2013 when we had this last workshop in Berlin. And I'm particularly pleased to see that a lot of the people who were there, you know, people made it over from this side of the Atlantic to Berlin back then, and now the other way around. I think it's an excellent sign to show that we're all communicating and working together. So that is more or less all that I had to say in this welcome introduction. I welcome you very warmly to Washington, D.C., to Georgetown, to this area. I hope you'll have a good time during this workshop. If you have any organizational or local questions at all, please direct them to me. And after that, I will pass on responsibility to Caroline, who's chairing the first session. We'll present our first speaker. So looking forward to the workshop. Thank you all for coming.
Okay, yeah, we have time. We're way ahead of time.
I took it fast.
You're good. So hi, welcome. We've built in lots of time for coffee, for discussion, for Q&A today. So we're hoping that there will be lots of conversations. Yeah, so we'll set up the computer for the first presentation, and then I'll do
Well, thank you.
an introduction. Yes.
I thought I'd have to sign the first
We're
one.
full service here. Full service. We got coffee, we got tech.
I don't know your password, but that'd be
Oh.
That's fine.
Yeah, I know.
We can do that in a minute.
we can hook you up right here.
You can live tweet my password.
Anybody needs anybody needs a laser pointer?
Great. Okay, so since we have time, I'll take just a minute to welcome you also and just say how wonderful it is to see so many people that I know from Coptic studies and early Christianity here, and also to thank Amir and Georgetown for hosting, and also to thank the NEH as well. So my role as chair for this session is just to kind of keep everybody on track. We've planned for all the papers to run about 20 minutes with about 10 minutes for conversation about that paper. And then at the end of every session, there's about 20 minutes or half an hour for more Q&A and discussion, which means, you know, we have lots of time to talk. So we do have a little bit of buffer if your talk goes over if you're a speaker, but please try not to go too far over. And I will wave from the front if you're going way over. So our first speaker is Philip Sellew from the University of Minnesota, who has this great project on the Oxyrhynchus papyri. And it is a real pleasure for me to have Philip here because Philip was the person who invited me to my very first invited symposium at the University of Minnesota when he hosted a symposium on monasticism back in like 2003 or 2004.
Yeah, the month before Bush launched the war.
Right, the month before
Just to help you remember.
the war. Yes, I tried to forget that. So, so it's really a great pleasure for us to host Philip. So